Right, this transfer case. Why is it an uneconomic repair? Why don't you just bore it out, Michael, and get JP to bore it out, put a sleeve in, top hat sleeve, like we did once before? Yeah, we could. But how do you do it? Because it's not as easy as you think. How do we start this? This transfer case has obviously had no oil in it. It's been run dry. And the bearing had probably seized onto the differential and was moving around in the casing. The outer piece was moving around the casing. Somebody put a new bearing in it, punched round here to hold the bearing in place, banged it back together again, and thought they did a good job. But it doesn't always work like that. Now, you're going to say, well, why don't you just get JP to bore this out? Yes, you could. But how do you find the centre of this hole? Because you see, when a bearing's been rattling around in an aluminium casing, it's not so easy to find the centre of this hole here. Because when we tested out once before, even if it's out by 10,000th of an inch, 20,000th of an inch, it doesn't always wear out concentrically. It wears out in like an egg shape. So how do you find the centre? Well, this puzzled JP for a little while, and then he came up with a great idea. What you've got to do is you work off this diameter here. This has got to be concentric with the hole here. So what he did was, he had a piece of scrap steel kicking about that was round, almost the same size as this, with a hole in it. So he put it in his lathe, turned it down so it was a tight fit in this hole here. Then he could put it on his milling machine and then work out the centre for his milling machine off that disc, bolt this down to the disc on top of the table, and then he had this inline to machine. A right royal mess about. It can be done though. But this also needs machining here. The intermediate shaft, it's all worn out, it's knackered. But to make matters worse, I don't know if it's going to pull up in this camera or not. Here, where the intermediate shaft has been, this has got a lip on it. This is worn out, this needs machining too. Not as easy as you think. So it's not really an economic repair. It's not really economical to repair that. So that's going to be toast. Now, perhaps you know that I do quite a few gearboxes and transfer cases now. Well, obviously, because I'm in Canada, getting them from UK is really, really expensive. And if we get one from Ashcroft's, for example, if you decide to get one from Ashcroft's, their core charge is £350. So they want the old one back, or you pay £350, core charge for the old unit. That for us in Canada is really expensive because it's going to cost us that to ship it. So if we were to ship a transfer case from Ashcroft's to here, they charge £30 for packaging and also £310 for shipping. So you're up to £340. So couple that with the core charge, it gets really expensive to get a transfer case from the UK, and that isn't including the £650 it costs for a basic transfer case, not including an ATB differential or changing ratios or changing shafts or manipulating all sorts of stuff. It gets very expensive, very, very expensive. So perhaps you can understand why I put so much time and effort into making my testing machine, so I can test these out for 2-3 hours, get them nice and hot, fill them full of oil and test them and make sure that they're okay before they go out. Because there seems to be quite a bit of a demand for them here, people changing ratios and people wanting heavy duty stuff. So that's why I'm doing it. And transmissions and stuff like this because it's easier for me than building Land Rovers. I'm all geared up for it now, you see. So that's just a little explanation as to, you know, this particular transfer case. Also, because they'd welded the nut onto the back of the differential, that renders that scrap. It's just not worth re-welding and putting a new thread on that. It's going to cost us a fortune in machining to salvage that. So unfortunately, we have salvaged quite a few bits off this. One of the things that we like to salvage is the output housing where the speedo drive is. Why? Well, a lot of Disco 2s, well, all Disco 2s, didn't have a speedometer output, and consequently there's nowhere to put a speedo drive in. The Disco 1s had I would say like a sensor in there, but it was still the same casting, so you could take that sensor piece out and put a regular gear drive in for a cable, so that was okay. But the Disco 2s didn't. They worked out the speed off the ABS sensors in the wheels. That's how they did it. They worked out all four. It was calculating all the time. Worked them out and divided by 4, and that, I don't know, it did something to do with magic. Anyway, so that's a good thing to have. Also, in the front of this differential casing, it had the front end of a TD5 for some bizarre reason. This wasn't a TD5 box, it had a front end of a TD5. So what's the interesting thing about that, Mike? I'll show you. Yeah, I've noticed I've got fog in my lens. I'll have to put this camera in a bag of rice and try and dry it out. Right, just to finish this video off. This is the front end of a TD5 type Puma type, well, not a Puma, but a TD5 box. And you see it's got this plug in here. Well, this plug goes for a sensor to tell if the gearbox is in high or low range, because it changes the mapping of the fueling of the TD5. So if you get a transfer box and it hasn't got this casting on, then you're stuffed, you can't do it. So we keep those are like gold dust. Also, talking when I was chatting earlier about the speedo drive, there's the speedo drive. The Disco 2 didn't have this bit in. So can you machine it out? It was there, there was a dimple in it. But JP said it's a really tricky one to get in line, you know. He says, yeah, we could machine it out, but he said, is it worth it? He said, if you had about 20 of them and you get set up on a CNC machine, you could just sort of bolt them on and do all that machining, but we haven't got that facility. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to try and dry my camera out, and I don't know what happened to it. It's been raining so much here that I must have got it wet the other day. Anyway, I hope that explains a few things. We'll see you later.